The National Desk, America's News, now.
Escalation remains a big concern.
The war drums continue beating as the U.S. looks to find a last-minute truce in Mideast fighting, when ceasefire talks could resume, and where protesters plan to ramp up the pressure. Then the debate over cell phone use in classrooms heating up. The major steps 2 states are now taking to restrict access in schools. And charges filed. What candidate Donald Trump told Elon Musk in an interview that's putting him in hot water with the UAW. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tonight, the U.S. has approved $20 billion in weapon sales to Israel as the threat of a wider war in the region grows. That sale, a possible attempt at threat deterrence as Iran rejects calls to refrain from retaliatory attacks against Israel in response to the killing of a Hamas political leader in the country's capital. That expected attack now pushing global oil prices to rise. Right now, the Biden administration sending officials to the Mideast to press for de-escalation and a return to meaningful ceasefire talks that have so far failed to bring a lasting truce. Negotiations will resume Thursday, but it's unclear if all parties will be at the table.
Prime Minister Netanyahu quickly confirmed that his team will be at the ceasefire talks on Thursday and that they'll be prepared to finalize the deals for implementing this. And simultaneously, our Qatari partners have assured us that they are working to ensure that there is Hamas representation as well.
Meantime, at home, pressure building from pro-Palestinian and anti-war demonstrators preparing to come out in full force during the Democratic National Convention, now less than a week away. Dozens of groups organizing the multi-day protests critical of the U.S. military and financial support to Israel, which they argue is committing war crimes in Gaza against the Palestinian people, something Israel has denied. But organizers, they are expecting more than 100,000 protesters outside the DNC. Tonight, law enforcement say they're ready and looking for the best possible outcome.
We don't want to interfere with their First Amendment rights, and we're going to make sure that we do that. We get them there safely, give them the opportunity to have their voices heard, be seen, and then hopefully when it's all over, everybody disperses safely.
And tonight, voters heading to the polls for some key primary races, kicking off the general election in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Connecticut, and Vermont. Democratic senators up for re-election, like Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar, will find out which Republicans they'll be facing this November. Democratic Rep. Ilhan Omar hopes to defeat 3 primary challengers, including former Minneapolis City Council member Don Samuels, who almost beat her back in 2022. And new details emerging as police investigate a burglary at former President Donald Trump's campaign office in Ashburn, Virginia, about 30 miles from Washington, D.C. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office says it happened late Sunday night, and surveillance footage shows a man inside with a backpack strapped to his chest, a baseball cap, and a hoodie. It's unclear at this moment whether anything was stolen from that office.
They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone.
Donald Trump speaking there. The United Auto Workers Union has filed federal labor charges against him and Tesla CEO Elon Musk after they talked about strikes on X last night. The UAW claims Trump and Musk illegally tried to threaten and intimidate workers who go on strike. The National Labor Relations Board will decide whether to look into the claims. Meantime, criticisms, too, mounting on the other side of the ticket as Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris faces growing questions over her policy positions on the border. The National Desk's Christine Frizzell has more.
The best course of action at the southern border, a hot topic in any presidential election year, including the last one.
When you become president, would you be committing to close immigration detention centers?
Absolutely. On day one, people are profiting off of the incarceration of other human beings, who in this case are children. On day one, we'll shut them down.
That statement resurrecting criticism for how a President Harris may navigate the volatile situation at the border today.
Her comments to get rid of these facilities, beyond just being reckless and irresponsible, it defies the law. We have to have a process that applies consequences and deterrence. And detention is one of those common sense elements.
Another 2019 statement also under scrutiny.
This administration has decided to vilify them and to trade on them for the sake of this president's medieval vanity project called a wall.
These sentiments appear to run counter to what Vice President Harris is saying now.
As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border.
Clearly, the situation at the southern border has changed since 2019, so it's very feasible the vice president's viewpoints have changed as well. But that is central to why more and more are calling on her to be interviewed on the subject, and so many others, to clearly explain her policies and why some appear to have profoundly evolved. The Washington Post editorial board suggesting elections aren't just about winning. They're about accumulating political capital for a particular agenda, which Ms. Harris can't do unless she articulates one. With the Democratic National Convention just days away, the Harris campaign says her policy positions will be laid out clearly. Many already watching to see if they reflect presidential candidate Harris from then or now. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Christine, thanks. Ohio police officer Connor Grubb indicted on charges of murder, involuntary manslaughter, and assault. Last August, Grubb shot and killed pregnant black woman Takia Young through her windshield while she was suspected of stealing alcohol. An officer with Grubb ordered Young to get out of her car, but she started driving off, and that's when Grubb shot her. He'll be arraigned in court tomorrow. Meantime, a former Kansas police chief who led a raid against a newspaper last year, charged with felony obstruction of justice. Gideon Cody is accused of persuading a possible witness in the investigation into his conduct to keep information from authorities. Cody says the raid of the Marion County Record and the home of its publisher was justified because he had evidence that one of the reporters committed identity theft. Prosecutors say there was no evidence. Missouri residents will vote in November on a constitutional amendment that would guarantee the right to an abortion and reverse the state's strict ban in place. Today, the Office of the Secretary of State certified that a petition to put it on the ballot got enough signatures from registered voters. People in at least 6 other states will also vote on abortion rights this November. Cracking down on cell phone use in schools. California Governor Gavin Newsom just became the latest official to urge school districts to restrict the use of smartphones on campus. And today, South Carolina's State Board of Education considering guidelines on limiting access, postponing a final vote until next month. But if put in place, they will join Utah, Florida, Louisiana, and others trying to limit phone use. Fall college sports soon to get underway, and for student athletes, financial opportunities this year are exploding as more states allow students to make money off their name, image, and likeness. But there is a downside. The National Desk's Angela Brown brings us the other side of the coin.
Imagine signing a deal with Adidas in high school.
No longer a dream, but reality. Take Tyler Atkinson. Fox 5 Atlanta reporting he just inked an NIL deal. That's name, image, likeness with Adidas, and he's still in high school.
So you've got scholarships, you've got books, you've got name, image, likeness, and now you have revenue sharing.
Brent Richard is the CEO of IMG Academy that provides growth opportunities for student athletes, which includes financial literacy.
And so it's really education in this environment where there's a financial opportunity in college in particular that is bigger and faster than it's been historically.
IMG Academy is now working with Merrill Wealth Management to build a financial curriculum. As more student athletes make money off NIL, we talked to Greg Magali, the head of Merrill Private Wealth Management, about what those courses could offer.
In its basic form, it comes down to things like spending and savings education and education around investing education around like their earnings and how to pay taxes.
Florida just became the 36th state to permit NIL compensation at the high school level. Other states like North Carolina are considering it.
I think it's a great thing because it helps the kids and their families, the ones who need it.
Not only did the Florida High School Athletic Association allow students to make money off NIL, the CBS News is reporting the board also agreed to allow high school athletes to hire agents to assist them. So this is becoming big business for some student athletes 18 and under. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
All right, Angela, thank you. And coming up, the concerning forecast that suggests trouble for the economy despite a positive change in a key inflation measure. Then a nut recall elevated to the highest possible level of risk, the product that could cause serious harm. And later, after an earthquake in Southern California, what a seismologist is warning about what could come next. We're back in 90 seconds. Right now, Tropical Storm Ernesto is bringing severe weather to parts of the Leeward Islands as it moves west towards the Virgin Islands and toward Puerto Rico. All of those areas at risk for flooding and mudslides by tomorrow. Hurricane conditions possible on the Virgin Islands and along the coast of some Puerto Rican islands. Ernesto likely to become a hurricane tonight. And taking a look at your money, some positive news on the economy. A key measure of inflation slowed last month. The producer price index was up 2.2% for the 12 months ending in July, down from the 2.7% increase in June. Tomorrow we'll get even more critical information about price hikes when the consumer price index is released. On the other hand, Home Depot, which is often a bellwether of consumer spending, says people have been spending less on home improvement because of high interest rates and economic anxiety. Home Depot reduced its sales expectations for 2024, estimating sales at stores open for at least a year will drop between 3% and 4% when compared to the year before. And tonight, a look at what changing workplace trends are doing to the commercial real estate market. In Washington, D.C. in particular, nearly a quarter of the city's office space now sits empty, the highest vacancy rate ever recorded. The National Desk's Mitch Blatcher investigates the plummeting values and what it means for local economies.
This office building, bought for $45 million in 2012, sold for $10 million in June.
It's empty in there.
We've been investigating the costs of the Capitol's empty offices.
This building went from being $97 million in 2018 to $72 million today.
Today, almost a quarter of the district's office space sits empty. That's an all-time high.
We recognize that having fewer office workers is having an impact on our commercial values.
The Bowser administration highlighted hundreds of office buildings it expects to lose value through 2025. They estimate the total loss will reach more than $12 billion. The capital's empty offices may create deals for new buyers, but they devastate the city's property tax base. The city expects to lose $464 million in property taxes over the next 3 years, all because of empty offices.
The tax is based on what the value of the office is, and they are dropping dramatically.
Architects like Steve Smith are reimagining how empty office space can again come alive.
This was a hallway to the office. It backed up to the parking garage, as you can see now. We've broken through the wall here.
But in order to transform old offices into new spaces, zoning and building codes have to be changed or at the very least flexible. In D.C., Mayor Bowser is offering building owners in this eligible area a 15-year tax freeze to turn their empty office space into new commercial, entertainment, or retail spaces. She's offering a 20-year tax break to transform old office space into new homes. But those conversions take more than financial incentives.
So it affects zoning and it affects building code.
So you need the city or the municipality to actually change something.
And most cities around the country are motivated to do that now.
Are you changing anything with code or with zoning in order to make transforming some of these office buildings more realistic?
No, we still want safe buildings, and so if we notice that there are any gaps in code, then we'll certainly address it. But that's not our focus.
So you haven't changed any code or zoning yet?
I think I answered that.
Are you considering it?
We're always considering how to be responsive to our housing needs.
A massive boost in funding for research aimed at improving the outcomes of cancer surgeries. President Biden announcing today $150 million will be allocated to the Moonshot Initiative that he first launched back in 2016 as vice president after the death of his son, Beau, to cancer. The money is going to 7 different universities who will collaborate together on a program aimed at making tumor removals more effective. Biden says he hopes to get the U.S. closer to his goal of cutting U.S. cancer deaths by half over the next 25 years. Russia is criticizing the U.S. and other allies of Ukraine for not condemning Kyiv's surprise incursion into Russia's Kursk region that started last week. During a UN Security Council meeting convened by Russia today, the U.S., France, and Britain didn't mention the attack. Russia claims Ukraine purposely targeted civilians, but those accusations have not yet been verified. And take a look at this, the wild aftermath of wildfires that have wreaked havoc on Greece just outside of Athens. Authorities there saying that they're making progress at putting out the fire that began on Sunday, but they've already seen this fire burn more than 100,000 acres, destroying homes and businesses, leaving at least one person dead. New evacuations were issued today for residents in at least one area near the capital, as more than 700 firefighters work nonstop to put out the flames. Today, many countries, by the way, pitching in to help Greece, including Turkey, which has sent 2 firefighting planes, and the Czech Republic sending dozens of firefighters their way. In tonight's Consumer Alert, a recall of walnuts elevated to the FDA's highest risk level classification. In July, California-based Stutz Packing Company voluntarily recalled packages of its shelled walnuts due to listeria concerns. But the recall, reclassified because of what the FDA says is the reasonable probability the product could cause serious adverse health consequences or death. The nuts were sold in Arizona and Texas only. It comes in clear packaging with a red outlined white box printed in the center. You can either throw them away or return them for a refund. And we're learning new details about a study that says a trip to the gym might do a whole lot more than just help you shape up or slim down. Medical reporter Liz Bonas sharing the new research that shows it may be a powerful way to ease anxiety and depression.
Hey there, everybody. If you're a workout person, you likely know your brain gets quite a lift when you exercise. But this new study, one of the few to show that if you don't keep your physical body healthy, your mental health pays the price.
We call ourselves the Circuit Sisters.
At this Circuit Sisters program at Ohio's Core Fitness, personal trainer Joelle Tunning knows the value of a good workout.
It's one of those all-encompassing classes that really packs a punch.
But what these women may not realize is that not only is there a mental health lift from working out together,
we all joke with each other and get along great.
There's also a pathway, it appears, to less anxiety and less depression in the brain that's getting quite the punch. Researchers in the journal Nature Mental Health studied the health of 7 organ systems, including the lungs, muscles, bones, kidneys, liver, heart, and metabolic and immune systems. In 18,000 people, they found more than 7,000 had no major medical health conditions, but 10,000 had a lifetime diagnosis of one of 4 common mental health concerns: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety. The poorer the organ health, the more likely people were to have depression. And with the exception of kidney and lungs, anxiety was higher as well. They found multiple brain pathways through which poor organ health leads to poor brain health. So to stay mentally well, researchers concluded there were 14 habits that matter most to keep your organs strong. Fitness, of course, tops the list. The others most significant for organ and brain health: not smoking, not drinking alcohol excessively, getting enough sleep, and of course, eating a well-balanced diet. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Thanks for the tips, Liz. Coming up, shop owners in Seattle are complaining about repeated break-ins and shoplifting, why they're so frustrated by what happens when they report the crimes. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
They walked up carrying trash bags and heavy rock while a surveillance camera recorded them from above.
They're bouncing really, really hard on it with the rock.
The glass shattered but didn't give, so they threw the rock again, and then a third time. Owner Gloria Oyang says she recently installed a protective film over the glass to keep people from smashing their way in, which has already happened twice before. That same night, just down the street at La Pasta, someone broke through the storefront, but this time they got inside.
And then the perpetrators were able to put their hand in and open the door and come in and take some different items out of the store.
In both cases, police were called, but neither of the stores felt like it did any good.
I don't get any follow-up from the last 2 break-in. Like this time, I don't even talk to them.
In the light of day Monday, the devastation difficult for neighbors. Still stunned by what happened. A home on Arthur's Woods Drive in Bel Air leveled to the ground Sunday morning by a deadly explosion.
It was so loud, my whole house shook. Didn't know if it was real or some nightmare.
The blast heard blocks away on a security camera. The investigation into the cause of the explosion now involves federal authorities. The National Transportation Safety Board on the scene. Their jurisdiction includes gas lines.
So we are aware that there are reports that there was a smell or an odor of gas the previous night before. However, no 911 calls were actually made to the fire department, sending fire department personnel out here.
Monday, people in Southern California were shaken up. A 4.4 magnitude earthquake hit the Highland Park area around 12:20 in the afternoon. That's just 5 miles northeast of the Dodger Stadium, and many in Los Angeles County say they felt it.
It felt almost like the whole room was buzzing for a brief, intense period, and I dived under my desk and waited out to see if anything else was going to happen.
The quake comes less than a week after a 5.2 magnitude earthquake hit in Bakersfield. Dr. Lucy Jones, world-renowned seismologist, says if this earthquake was bigger, it could have been historic. Even though this one was considered a small quake, Jones says we should be preparing for the big one.
Coming up, how much it would cost you to take home a piece of Speedway history. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum selling off some of its most prized possessions, and that includes a 1954 Benz worth up to, get this, $70 million. The W196 Streamliner is chief among the selection of some of the world's most desirable cars up for sale in a Sotheby's auction that will feature 11 different legendary vehicles. The museum says they are aiming to increase the museum's endowment so that they can care for their remaining collection and buy more artifacts that tell the story of the Indy 500. And that does it for this edition of the National Desk. We do invite you to join us again tonight for more coverage of America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.